Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It is Friday, and you know what that means. It is time for the Cannabis Events Talk Show. Now, for those that are tuning in that may be new to this, the Cannabis Events Talk Show covers all about cannabis events, experiences, tourism, and our goal with this segment is to keep you updated on all the hottest topics from current news, trends, to even interviews as we bring in special guests each week. We also sometimes dive into marketing tips and so much more. So, how the lineup of the show goes is we are going to bring in our special guest who will do more of an interview segment with her, and then we're going to dive into kind of a co-host segment where she will go over the industry latest articles with me that we are going to touch base on, and then after that, before I go, I will share with you the latest updates, upcoming events, and then let you know who our special guest is next week. So before we get started, you guys know I like to double check and make sure all the platforms are good. So if you are tuning in from LinkedIn, please say hello, use the chat bar, let us know where you're tuning in from. I am going to check Twitter really quick and make sure we are going live and looking good over there. We are live on Twitter. And let me check out Facebook really quick before we get on with the show. And Facebook looks good. All right. So we are live. And hello, Jackson. Thank you for tuning in. Jackson's joining us from Michigan. Josephine, welcome. Thank you for joining us today from Arizona. Hi, Ariane from Chicago. Thank you all for tuning in. And now let's get to the good stuff. Let's bring our special guest up today. So I am so honored to introduce you to this week's co-host, Leah Cerri. Leah is based in the Bay Area and was raised in Mendocino County. She most recently worked for Flow Canna Cannabis, where she designed and produced events and actually led their trade marketing efforts. She is also the co-founder of Collective High, a cannabis events and experiences company, and is the owner of Lush for Life, a cannabis-focused events and marketing company. Now, she previously worked in the nonprofit sector where she led event design, production, and marketing teams, and she strives to create events and experiences that are interactive, playful, educational, and sustainable. So she's touching on everything that I think is vital and is just important to these experiences. So thank you, Leah, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Of course, we're happy to have you here. You bring so much insight and knowledge, and you've seen so much, I'm sure, over the past, few years, even within, maybe not even in the cannabis space, but even in the cannabis space for all the years you've been involved. Now, with the I said a little bit about your background, but share with our audience a little bit more. How did you get in the industry, and how did it evolve to these current businesses that you have?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually entered the space by working on and helping with events. And then I launched Lush for Life, which is a cannabis event company, in 2019. Around that same time, I started doing sales for an edible company. So I was managing all of our Northern California accounts, and then I took over marketing. Um, so with Lush for Life, I designed a lot of private consumption events for brands. One of them being a whole event focused on cannabis beverages. I did a lot of themed events. And then when COVID hit, like everyone, I had to cancel all my events, and I wasn't really sure what I would do. So I took a few months to just brainstorm and reflect. And then what came from that was I partnered with my friend, June Johnson, and she had been doing events herself for a cannabis delivery company. And we joined forces to form Collective High. That summer, I also started working for Flow Cannabis Co., as you mentioned. I was hired to design their events and also lead CSR strategy. And then eventually, I also led some trade marketing efforts. So I've now, I guess, been in the industry for about 3 years, either full-time or part-time. It feels like a lot longer. But I'm really excited this year to build on what I've started and just see things grow a bit.
Well, what you have achieved, and I'm more of a fan. I watch it more online, so I can't wait to experience it more in the future. But what you have done is, yeah, 3 years it seems like a lifetime, and you've accomplished a lot. So congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
So you shared a little bit about the collective high and how the business evolved. Let's say someone is tuning in and they're wondering, how can they work with Collective High? What kind of events do you focus on?
Yeah, so we started a year ago, and our first event was actually a cannabis themed scavenger hunt that we called Hi San Francisco for 420, and that was such a blast. It was so fun to work on. People called it the amazing race of cannabis, and it was just a lot of fun. And since then, we've done some events for clients. We've done some private consumption events, and we also designed an activation at Meadowlands this year.
Oh, wow. How was that? How was working with
Uh,
Meadowlands?
it was such a pleasure and such a joy. That event was amazing. I loved it.
Oh, awesome. So we got a few more. Annie said she loves the business concept. We got quite a few people from Chicago joining us. We got Crescent Jones from Humboldt, from Northern Humboldt. We also have we have Dinesh from Oregon. I apologize if I butchered your name. And now, with your strong background in events, both in cannabis and outside of cannabis, if you had to select one event that you created or attended, what is your favorite experience?
Um, well, I guess my favorite event that I've worked on last year was definitely our scavenger hunt. And I think that's just because, it was really fast paced. People were racing around San Francisco searching for clues and trying to win. So, you could really feel the camaraderie from the contestants, and their excitement was just really contagious. And also it was like personally rewarding for me to see this idea that I had be really successful and for people to love it as much as I was hoping they would. So that I would say was the one that I did. But then also, getting to play a small part in Meadowlands this year, we curated and designed their wellness village, and that just felt so special. I think part of that is because we are coming out of a year of having no events, so it felt like a celebration and really joyful, but also really fun, kind of like I don't know if you've been, but summer camp for stoners was like what I like to call it. It was great.
I didn't get to go this past year, but I did go before COVID, and it was a blast. You're right. It definitely is like summer camp for stoners. And two, I found out some things about myself. It was actually when I was closing my first business, and it actually, like, being out there made me realize that I was going the right path. Like, it was crazy. Like that. I loved that trip just because it was just everything about it really aligned, me with myself, aligned me with my peers, and it was just so much fun. So I'm sure what you created they all loved it.
Yeah.
And I am hopeful to try the scavenger hunt, this especially in-person scavenger hunt. And you're doing it again, right?
Yeah, for Collective High, we really we try to create events and experiences that are really welcoming and fun for people to. The goal is for people to like learn about cannabis and explore new brands. So we're trying to integrate education into our events like in a way that feels seamless and playful. But we also try to keep our events low cost because we want it to be equitable, but we also with a low barrier for entry, but we also want to reach the cannabis curious and like low to moderate consumers and give them an opportunity to kind of explore the space and try new products. So that's been our goal. And so we really try to curate a space that's going to like elicit a special experience that people will connect with the product. And then we also only have brands that we know and we love. We work with a lot of women-owned brands and brands owned by people of color, and that's really important to us. So we're just kind of trying to help break the stigma around cannabis by designing really fun, chic, amazing events that happen to feature cool cannabis products instead of alcohol.
I love it. That's such a cool experience. And just even the concept, your focus and what's passionate about your events.
Yeah.
So, as we all know, the past 2 years were transformative for the event industry. I mean, as a whole for everyone, but when it comes to from a business perspective, the event industry got hit pretty hard. How did you utilize that time to prepare for when the world began reopening?
That's such a good question. I personally I canceled all my events, obviously, as we all did. And I spent some time thinking and planning. I think for me, I was really trying to figure out how could I, or even could I, still create in-person events that were safe. So the outdoor scavenger hunt was a result of that brainstorm, because people did it alone or in small pods. It was all outdoors except for when people went inside dispensaries and they were masked. So it was very safe. But I also, at the beginning of the pandemic, I worked on a lot of virtual events. So trying to come up with ways to still keep a virtual event interactive for folks and engaging. And I picked up a lot of technical skills. And one thing that was great is that it opened up this opportunity for us where you could have a virtual event and you're not limited by geographic barriers. Like, anyone from the world can attend. And I think that was really cool, and it is still really cool. I also think, kind of for me personally, and this is my bias, but I really prefer in-person events, both from like the kind of events I want to work on to what I want to attend. I just don't think you can replicate that virtually yet. So
Yeah, no, it's hard. It's hard, and I'm sure you all got creative in that, in that virtual world. And you're right, virtual's not going to go anywhere. It can almost even be that just extra offering. If an event wants to stream partial of the event still, and
totally.
have a two-part, the hybrid, I guess. Yeah, hybrid is what they're calling it. So, and then that just emphasizes not only, like you're stating, more people to watch it or attend, but brands get a better, even further reach from the marketing.
Yep. They absolutely do. Yeah.
Now, we spoke a little bit about, Collective High and, one of your upcoming events. If you can share, what else do you have in store for 2022?
So we are actually bringing back our scavenger hunt by popular demand. So it's going to be our second annual on April 16th in San Francisco. I am really excited. I hope that it can be even bigger and better, and that the brands that we get to participate see even a greater return on investment, as well as the dispensaries, but also that the people that do it really just have even more fun than last year. So that's my goal. And that's really what I'm focused on right now. But I do hope to calendar some more events and experiences later on down the road.
Well, for those that are tuning in, we just put up the Collective High Instagram. So definitely go check them out on Collective High, or you can contact them directly on the website. It's right up there as well. And let's say you just want to connect with Leah as well, just because she's so amazing. Follow her on Instagram and start connecting there too. Now, let's see. We had a couple more comments. Jackson said virtual events are awesome, very beneficial for under 21 crowd. Tony said agreed. In-person events, let's see, let me get that up here. In person are way more fun than virtual. Yes. I mean, I think all of us can, especially all of us in the event industry, we're social beings. We that's why we do what we do, just, so yeah. And then I'll just throw up Jackson's response really quick as well. So
that's a good question. Thought about that, but it is great, like especially for education for people. I think it's a great way to share out information.
Yeah. Or even too, the ones that are not ready to come out yet. Maybe the Canna Curious that are just like, I can't be seen down there,
Or in states that it's not legal.
Yeah, so many good points. Now we are going to transition to where we cover a couple different articles that come through this week. And so how it goes is I'll be sharing the information, a little bit of an overview about the article, and then Leah and I will just share some viewpoints on it or our thoughts. So Article 1 is the court order not enough to stop Connecticut's post-swapping high bazaar. So Connecticut's weekly High Bazaar event is an event where cannabis producers can gift their product and receive donations. It's returning to its original location following a cease and desist order form from the town of Hamden. Apparently, the High Bazaar has been held almost every weekend in Hamden since the state first legalized adult use cannabis last year. But in the most recent weeks, due to the coverage this event has been getting on local news outlets, it started to get the radar of city officials. So the High Bazaar is made possibly by the portion of the state cannabis law that allows two individuals to give each other cannabis in the form of a gift. Presenters at the event can request specific donations, but are not allowed to make direct sales. And so they haven't been. They haven't had any cannabis sales at their events. Now, the cease and desist letter did state that their concern wasn't the event. The concern was the zoning matter. And it was more on how many people were going to be there and the traffic and a variety of things when it came to the zoning component. And so the complaint stated that about 500 to 1,000 people attended the bazaar on February 5th and 6th, and it congested the immediate area. So despite the order, High Bazaar was able to go on again last Saturday, but in an outdoor parking lot where the event originally was held, before it moved indoor for the winners. So, Leah, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, we all know about the gray area. You know, we've all seen the different varieties of how we have to get creative. But what are your thoughts on this and what High Bazaar does, and even kind of what happened?
I mean, anyone who's had to try to get a permit for an event, let alone a cannabis event, knows that it's a pain. The gray area, though, I mean, I and have operated in that before. It's so tricky. I have made many adult to adult gifts. I think when you're requiring a donation, though, I don't know how gray that is. It's like getting a little bit darker. But
Yeah,
again, I understand why people are doing it. So many of the laws that restrict us seem overly burdensome at times or unfair. So I understand why people do operate in that gray space.
yeah. And it does, although they're able to continue with this event, the town is actually doing an approved ban for 1 year on any new cannabis licenses. So I think it's, this is part of one of the components. They're now having to rethink it. So everybody that has a license is fine, but anybody looking for a new license there is going to have to wait until they kind of create some new zoning and ordinances. So, which sounds about right. That usually happens. Once these kind of things start to become more attention focused, then they're realizing they have to be more clear.
Right.
Yeah. Now, the next article. So this one is weed tourism is on the rise for 2022 and beyond. It's a lengthy article, so I'm just going to go over some key sentences so that we can really talk about it more. So the article goes into highlighting how global weed tourism is at full throttle and will continue to improve thanks to lowered travel restrictions, the development of COVID-19 vaccines, and most importantly, the implementation of better cannabis policies in some countries across the globe. One of the significant differences between this year's tourism expectations and the previous years, outside of the COVID component, is the prevalence of legal cannabis in Northern America and other Western countries. Now, tourists from all over the world do have another reason, to come to this country and actually now many other countries. We've seen Jamaica, we've seen all these other countries that are embracing cannabis to help with tourism on their own as well. So I think that's going to continue to increase. And according to the Cannabis Travel Organization, they explain that cannabis tourism has ignited the overall tourism sector in the country. They also said it serves as an enhancer for the other sectors in the country to give visitors something now to look forward to. And then one last data point was in 2020, they stated that at least 30% of tourists globally search for legal cannabis spots for the holidays. So I think this is all good information. This was a great article. What were your take? What was your take on this, Leah?
I love hearing about and reading things like this. It makes me really excited and hopeful, especially for someone that's from Northern California. I feel like there's so much potential there for tourism, and really kind of helping the economy there. That sometimes, depending on the area, like it's really rural, and a lot of those economies are struggling. So um, I really hope that this grows, and I'd love to see, more farm tours, cannabis friendly hotels and restaurants, kind of like what we see in Napa for
Yeah.
Emerald Triangle and beyond. I just think it would be so great for the region, and so it makes me really excited that people are starting to think about this and support it and build businesses around it, because I think it has the opportunity to like really impact the area and beyond, not just that little part of California that I love so much.
I mean, but that's where our heart has held because of what is, what is over there. So that to me is where the heart of cannabis is. So we want them to thrive. So I agree. But the other thing you did bring up, and it's a valid point, and one of the reasons, we continue to do this show and educate and work with the Cannabis Travel Association is the fact that this can help us from the pandemic. It can be a rebound, like you're
Yeah.
stating. It can bring more revenue. It can bring more jobs. People are ready to travel, whether they're ready to go to an event or they're ready to go to maybe more of a retreat or an intimate kind of gathering with just a few groups of people, maybe not a full on conference, but, things are ready. People are ready to go out there to some extent. Yeah. And then one last thing the article stated was Washington, D.C. and Guam are building up their potential for cannabis tourism as well. So, it definitely sounds like more and more states and countries are moving towards this talk about cannabis tourism and travel. And hopefully we'll start to see some more exciting trips. We'll hear from Leah on what's going on in more Northern California, and maybe she'll start working with that and the travel side, the tourism side, some of these retreats or farming tours. I don't know. Just throwing that out there towards you. Now, I'm sure you have enough on your plate, though, but let's go into the last article. Article number 3. So, New York clamped down on businesses offering marijuana as a gift, despite legal language that seems to allow it. So, again, the first article was similar to a standpoint of how in Connecticut, they were dealing with this component of a gifting in the gifting gray area. Now, New York is also dealing with the same thing. So the Office of Cannabis Management said Tuesday that it sent letters to more than 24 enterprises it suspects of illegally selling cannabis. They told all these businesses to stop or they will be facing fines, potential criminal charges, and risk their prospects of getting a license down the road. So the state law that legalized recreational cannabis last spring doesn't discuss gifts, but does allow transferring without compensation. So there's this one may be a little bit more of that gray area than Connecticut, because they're still putting some verbiage of like, well, you can do this kind of. So as the state works out rules to apply for licenses to sell cannabis, some businesses have started offering the cannabis as a gift to people who make what's described as a donation, who buy art, or there's now the club component in New York, and they are gifting cannabis to those that pay a membership for the actual like lounge or that the business that you're going to. So to get access, almost like a gym, you get access to whatever's provided at the gym. You pay a monthly membership. So there has been an okay with that kind of standpoint. Happy Monkeys, a New York City-based business, they haven't received a cease and desist. And they do just that. They produce cannabis-themed events with goodie bags that include cannabis. And it's more for the gifting. The gifting part is not tied to the purchase, is what he's stating. That's just an extra part of it from an event standpoint. So, I think we're going to start to see more of this. It is, unfortunately and fortunately, going into this kind of approach with cannabis recreationally, there are going to be some new laws, but hopefully they don't take the fun out of events fully, right?
I'm really
What do you think about
see
this
what
one?
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens in New York. I know right now it's like probably really tricky because, they're moving into legalization, but not fully, there's not all the things to support it. The part about the swag bag though was interesting because you have to be careful. Like someone can buy a ticket to an event. That's what their money is for. They're not technically buying the swag bag and the product. Like that's like a lanyard or which means something extra. It's a gift, but
Yeah.
you have to be careful. So I think when if you have a shop and you're giving someone product as a gift, but you're really requiring a donation, that's a little bit trickier to me. But
Exactly. They're not going there for the sweatshirt at the end of the day. Like, but yeah, so it's again from Happy Monkey standpoint, that's good. Like, at least there's still some communication on that standpoint. And I mean, at the end of the day, I know for some people it's like they're tired of these tight restrictions and things like that. Well, the biggest thing we I think all need to focus on is how can we just make licensing more accessible and affordable? Because then this wouldn't be an issue. We wouldn't have to go down a gray area standpoint. We wouldn't be looking for loopholes if it was just more accessible for everyone. So, but that's a
yeah,
bigger topic.
and that's like a great point though, because there's so many barriers to entry for us. There's so many extra rules, so many fees and permits required that you don't have to deal with if you're in another industry. So it just makes it so much harder.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. That's so
yeah.
true. Well, Leah, this is the end of the show. Thank you for joining us. How can people contact you? I'll put up your websites. But do you have any final announcements?
No, I would happy to chat with anyone. If you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram or via the website. And if you're interested in joining us for the scavenger hunt or sponsoring it, we'd love to chat with you too. But even folks that are just curious about the event space, I'm always happy to connect with people. And I mean, you're right. That is why we do events, is we love building community and connecting with folks. So I'm happy to chat with anyone. But thank you for having me. This was a pleasure.
Yeah, no, of course. Ever since we got connected, you have been just so kind and always so offering to, jump on Clubhouse, jump on these meetings, jump on all these things. So you definitely are knowledgeable and willing to share that. So it's very appreciative. And I'm just thankful that you joined us today. So I I did put up Leah's website for Collective High. We also, again, on Instagram, you can follow them there. And then one more time, if you want to connect directly with her on Instagram as well. And that's it. Well, thank you, Leah. We appreciate you being here. And Jackson said, thank you for your time. Awesome meeting. Gavin also states, thanks for having us. This was informational. And Josephine as well. So they enjoyed it. So thank you, Leah. Now, before we officially sign off for the day, I have my final announcements. So next week, our guest is Rachel Gordon. Rachel is a freelance cannabis and psychedelics journalist and copywriter. She has been featured in several leading outlets, including High Times, Beard Bros, Cannabis Now, and Skunk. And she is a social being. She knows about all the events and has highlighted so many of them. So I know she's going to be able to give some great insight. Also, our highlight event of the week is the Black Cannabis Festival. The Black Cannabis Festival is bringing the Black community together to celebrate cannabis, CBD, lifestyle, religion, freedom, culture, social equity, social justice reform, education, mental health and wellness, and so much more. If you're interested in attending this event this upcoming week or wanting to learn more, you can find the event on Event High, and it is actually happening in Los Angeles, California. So this is more for California folks. It's called the Black Cannabis Festival, and it is happening this weekend. Now, with that being said, thank you all for joining us. And I was going to throw up, actually, let me throw up there we go. I don't do this often. Check out Eventhi. If you don't know Eventhi's website, it's right there, eventhi.io. If you do want to be a guest, I'm going to put this up on the screen as well. You can email us and learn more about how you can be a guest to discuss cannabis events and tourism. And then don't forget, follow us as well on Instagram. So with that being said, this is Adelia Carrillo. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay high.